Welcome to another episode of the New Left podcast. And I am your host when we're on the Revolutionary Blackout Network. I'm Compton J, and I'm joined with a great panel today. Now, just a heads up for everyone watching. Uh, this is going to be the last episode of the New Left on the Revolutionary Blackout Network. But as you already knew, we were already alternating between this network and the Populist Voice Network. But now we're just going to be shifting the show to where it's going to be exclusively on the Populist Voice Network. So I just wanted to give that heads up about the show today. This is the last episode. So in today's episode, will be about the Maxwell case, and we'll also talk about her father, Robert. So that is today's main topic. We will touch up on a couple of other items, also like Chris Cuomo being suspended by CNN, and I think he just recently put out a statement. So we'll talk about those, and then anything else that's hot on Twitter, we can, if we have time, we'll squeeze those in too. But first, let's go ahead and go around the table and just check in with everybody. I'll start with Andrew right below me. How's it going, Andrew?
Great. Yeah. Living the
Awesome.
dream.
Awesome. And right next to you is Felice. How are you doing this after or evening for you or night for you?
Yeah, it's 8 here.
Okay.
And I'm doing okay. I'm tired. I have papers due and finals next week, so I've been studying a lot.
Awesome. Great. All right. And Amira is also joining us here. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. And then also the fabulous Savage Joy. How are you tonight? Oh, hang on one second. Joy.
Fabulous Savage Joy's muted.
Yeah, now I'm sorry. I muted you. So go ahead now.
I was just dropping some serious info, too. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you for having me. Great group of people for the panel today.
Absolutely. And right in the middle next to me is Bubbles. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's going to be a busy December, but looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Very welcome. Glad to hear or see everybody on tonight's panel. Like I said, we're going to touch on the Maxwell case and just have a different perspective. Kind of looking at also her father. So when we say Maxwell, everybody who's watching, that's who we're talking about, G Maxwell. But we're gonna try to refrain from saying her first name. So let's go ahead and start with the first video. And I do want to start with the video only just for those like who are not us, who don't follow this, this case as closely as we do, or some of us do. I do want to kind of just give everybody a short background on it. And I'm going to lean on Kim. Kim Iverson does a good job on this. I'm sorry, I'm going to lean on Gavin first. Hang on a second. I'm sorry, Garland Nixon first, and then we'll go ahead and go to Kim. So I said Kim first, but we're going to go to Garland first, and then go to. So I'm setting up the video before I share it. All right, so now it's ready. Let me go ahead and share it here. I thought his take on the trial was very interesting. Anytime I hear a take that makes me think, I take it. I try to find out more about it. So, and that was the case of this clip here. I'm going to show you. So, let me share you the video. This is from the Katie Halpert show. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Kim. Shout out to Leslie. Shout out to Garland. All great comrades. So here we go with Garland is going to kind of break down from his perspective the Maxwell case. So let's take a listen here.
But maybe Garland has more info.
Well, actually, I was going to take a completely different angle on this, if you guys don't mind. A completely different angle. And here's the angle. I, to be quite frank, don't have confidence that this trial is on the up and up. And I'll tell you why. We talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. We talk about Epstein, and we talk about the people who perpetrated the clearly what appears to be crimes against young women and crimes involving female trafficking, et cetera. But what happens if you talk about the other side of it, right? What happens if you look at Ghislaine Maxwell and you recognize that her father was named Robert Maxwell? There was a book written about Robert Maxwell, and the name of the book was Robert Maxwell, Israeli Super Spy. And you realize that her sisters, Isabel and Christina, were both connected to Israeli intelligence and the CIA. They worked. I mean, if you start digging into the Maxwell family, you don't have to get too many shovels full of dirt before you realize that espionage was a family trade craft. And that being said, when you look at Epstein and you realize, well, this guy was a quote financier, but how did he make his money? Nobody knows. He worked with this guy, Lex Wexner, but nobody knows all of this money that he spent and appeared to have, but he didn't have some kind of a job or he didn't trade. Where does money come from? A mysterious place. And then even when it gets to what happened to Epstein, here he is in some kind of a supermax type jail that nobody could get into, and the cameras shut off, and suddenly the guards fall asleep and he commits suicide in a odd and strange kind of way. And add one more thing, because I was an investigator. I was former commander of the investigations division for police department. And I'm just throwing breadcrumbs together. And then you look at it and you're like, when I put all of that stuff together, and add one more thing, when he was prosecuted for what seems to be significant crimes in Florida, and he got barely a slap on the hand, and Alex Acosta, a former official in the Trump administration, when he was asked about it, he said, I was told Epstein is intelligence, leave him alone. Now, I mean, granted, I'm not Sherlock Holmes, but I can put enough breadcrumbs together to figure that out. And I think it becomes blatantly obvious that this was an intelligence operation that we're talking about. And in the same way that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in significant criminal activity involving the things that he was involved in, and they slapped him on the hand in Florida until it got so obvious that they couldn't hide it anymore. And he had an unfortunate and untimely demise, in the same way that Ghislaine Maxwell's father had an unfortunate and untimely demise. I'll just put it like this. I'll end by saying this. If this is miscreant behavior by sexual deviants, then the story is one thing. But if it is an intelligence operation that is involved in miscreant behavior and sexual deviancy for intelligence operations worldwide, we have a whole different conversation now, though.
So that was, I know it's a mouthful or a brainful, maybe I can say it that way, Garland Nixon. Now, I don't know if any of you ever heard of this take or have this take, but it did make me do some research, and I'm starting to think there's a lot of breadcrumbs to what he's saying. So I want to go to Joy first, because you're shaking your head the most. So I think maybe you know about this, or you have heard about it, or maybe this is your perspective. So Joy, just, I mean, not necessarily on him, but what is your reaction to what's going on in the Maxwell case so far? And also if you want to comment on the video.
Well, shout out to Garland. Love you. But actually, Felice introduced me to a podcast I'm listening to right now, Chasing G. And it actually, like, the first 6 or 7 episodes is all about her father. So yeah, I mean, what he's saying is so legit. He had ties to Israeli government. He was an awful man, absolutely awful. And there were a lot of like ties to FBI, CIA, things like that in the family. Also, you have Jeffrey, who was a high school dropout, had nothing to do. He did not have intelligence. He was street smart and business smart, and then wound up a math professor of a university as a high school dropout, and then a multi-millionaire businessman. Well, this is how these things happen, because he connected with G, because he provided these people services, and things like that. So I 100% agree with Garland. There is so much government in this case, and that's why you have Prince Andrew, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Trump. You have Tony Blair. Like, so many people in politics have been to the property, I'm going to call it, so I don't get us kicked off, and have connections, have been on the call logs, things like that. There are so many politicians involved in this, and so many other like agents, if you will. And that's why it's been covered up for so long. And of course, he got suicided. The fact that he had the ability to drop these names, that is terrifying to people of power. Also, these rumors have been going on for decades with E, and then Trump becomes president, and all of a sudden something gets done about it. Well, that's because before it was only Clinton, and you can't have him be the one that exposes all this, because he's Team Blue. So you got to wait till Team Red is the one who's like the evil one, and now you're going to put E in prison because now Trump is exposed.
Absolutely. And what's the name of that podcast you shouted out earlier?
It's called Chasing G.
G, yes. And everybody knows what G is. So
where can that be found?
You said it can be found anywhere podcasts can be found. Is that what you said, Joy? I'm sorry.
I'm listening to it on Audible.
Yeah, it's only on Audible.
It's
gotcha.
free.
Okay, I have Audible, by the way, but and you can open up a free account. You don't have to pay for anything and listen to that to free everything. So I do suggest that Chasing G, and we know what the G stands for. So let's now.
Vicky Ward.
Absolutely. Let's bring you in, Felice, since you put Joy on to the podcast that we were referring to. I would assume then you have heard what Garland Nixon, the prospective Garland Nixon spoke about. Have you heard about this? What's your comment on the case in general? Not necessarily on Garland, but on the case in general, like how it's starting. What are your views on what's going to happen, maybe?
Well, with how it's starting, it seems like this is going to be a real long process because they keep filing different things where they want to stall. So it's going to take forever. And I'm not liking how the media is either not covering it or trying to say that she is a victim in this when there is documented proof that she is definitely not, and she definitely enjoyed everything that she was doing, which is disgusting. But yeah, he was very correct about Robert Maxwell. And in the podcast, it's actually done by Vicky Ward, who is a journalist in New York, and she was friends with G. Maxwell. And she ended up having to do a story for Vanity Fair on Epstein it was like she was writing it in 2002, but it was published in 2003, and they completely did away with her whole story because she found out what we're all finding out about. To an extent, she didn't find out everything just yet. But she did this whole podcast on it, and it's very well done. And I think one thing that when people, if they listen to it, there's a part where it's a speech, not a speech, but an interview that Robert Maxwell did before he passed. And he would be actually really disappointed in her because of what she's gotten wrapped up in. Because he was a bad person, and he was a member of parliament, suspected spy. He was a fraudster, but he wasn't a pedophile, and he would have been really disgusted by that. So it's very interesting.
Right. I think what this case, and I'm just interjecting this, it's peeling back how the ruling class lives, and for us to see, like, I don't think this is, I'm not going to say uncommon, but I don't think people in the ruling class and the oligarch, these rich billionaires on top of billionaires, I don't think this is surprising to them. I don't think this is surprising. So I just wanted to say that part. And yes, Sabby did have Garland on. I think her show ended or is ending soon. I'm not sure what they were talking about. I think they were talking about defunding the police. But that clip is from the Katie Halper show. So let's bring in Andrew and get your thoughts either on what Garland said and or just the case in general. What are your thoughts on what's going to happen? Andrew.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, I have a lot of catching up to do with the case and stuff. These last few days, there's been a lot of other things going on. So not for lack of interest, but so my knowledge is probably not the same as some other people on this panel. I will say though, I mean, based on what Garland said, I'm learning more and more, just there is no limits to SIA and what they are capable of doing. So I have I just saw an article recently that said, if you don't agree to, do the intelligence agency's work of getting information from groups, they can make your life miserable, right? Just for you basically saying, I'm good, nothing, right? So these are very, very serious entities that mess with people's lives. So, at this point, anything I hear, I mean, obviously doing
nothing shocks you.
Nothing shocks me.
Nothing shocks you. Like, you could tell me and I'm like, wow, yeah, that sounds like that's up their wheelhouse, actually.
Yeah.
So let me actually say, Andrew, mid your response, let me play this video from the Hill, Kim Iverson. This is the video I was referring to earlier, where she breaks it down a little more. Not to say she gives a total overview, but I was one of those people. I still am. Here goes Logan. There goes Logan. What's up, Logan?
How's it going?
I was one of those people, and still I would consider myself a person that is a person who maybe just knows the headlines and a little bit more than the headlines. I'm not well versed on the case, but Kim in this next video here, she does give a pretty good overview of what's currently happening, not necessarily the full story, but what's currently happening, even for those that may not have followed the story. So I do want to play this just so we can all kind of be on the same page. So it is maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I may stop it depending on where we're at in the story. So hang on a second here.
Hey, Kim, what's on your radar?
Well, while the world focuses relentlessly on the new COVID variant, rising gas prices, and Biden not wearing a mask in Nantucket, something else is happening that would otherwise be getting front page coverage. The trial of Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. The names and strange connections to this case continue to pile up, and I'll reveal the latest coincidental connection and big name attached at the end. You'll have to wait for it. But first, let's go over a primer of the trial that will be taking place over the next, what they estimate to be 6 weeks. The trial begins today in Manhattan. Maxwell faces 6 charges directly related to sex trafficking and exploitation of underage girls. If convicted of all 6, she faces up to 70 years in prison. She also faces 2 counts of perjury, but those charges will be addressed in a separate trial that's yet to be set. So let's go over the 6 charges she faces in court today. Count 1. Conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. Count 2, enticement of a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. Count 3, conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. Count 4, transportation of a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. Count 5, sex trafficking conspiracy. Count 6, sex trafficking of a minor. I would say those charges are not good as well, but these charges do span over a 10-year period of time between 1994 and 2004 and involve 4 different victims, though we know there were likely many, many more. This particular court case only involves these 4. The indictment states that Ghislaine assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein to recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and Epstein to be under the age of 18. Basically, what the prosecution will be presenting is evidence that Ghislaine prepared these minor girls, some as young as 14, to engage in sex acts with Epstein. The young girls were enticed and recruited by Ghislaine and eventually would be groomed by Ghislaine to engage in paid sex acts that were labeled as massages. One victim accuses actually Ghislaine herself of participating in group sex with Epstein and the victim. These events would take place all over the country in Epstein's various residences, including Palm Beach, New Mexico, Manhattan, and even in Ghislaine's residence in London. Now, the victims, who are all now adults, will not be named in court. They will instead be allowed to use pseudonyms or their first names only. And this takes us to the topic of names. With so many powerful people connected to Jeffrey Epstein, which big names are we likely to hear in court? Well, probably no one's. That's right. We're likely to hear 0 powerful names dropped or implicated in this trial. Now, why is that? Because of the victims who have publicly dropped names, the prosecution left them out. There are no charges against Maxwell that involve any of the more well-known victims. For example, Virginia Giuffre, the most well-known of Epstein's victims, is not included in this trial. Giuffre is the one who claims she was trafficked to Prince Andrew. She also claims she was trafficked to New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, former U.S. Senator George Mitchell, lawyer Alan Dershowitz, modeling scout Jean-Luc Brunel, and billionaire Glenn Dubin. Now, why is she not included in the trial? Well, it's unclear. She says Ghislaine Maxwell was heavily involved in her exploitation, but for whatever unknown reason, the prosecution didn't bring up any charges related to Giuffre's case. Another victim who appears to be absent from the trial is Sarah Ransom. Ransom accused Epstein of raping her and accused both Epstein and Maxwell of recruiting her into their sex trafficking ring and lending her out to their friends, including Alan Dershowitz. Most importantly, Ransom was primarily stationed on Epstein's island in the Caribbean and would have seen and possibly interacted with the various influential people being flown on and off the island on Epstein's private jet. People such as Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, perhaps. In an interview with CBS News, Ransom stated, Ghislaine was Jeffrey's right hand, the lieutenant of the whole pyramid. She made sure we all stayed in line, that when we were called to his bedroom, that we went. However, in 2018, Ransom settled a case with Epstein and Maxwell, so it's not looking like she's included in the trial. Now, this takes us to a big name attached to the case that we'll be hearing a lot of during this trial, and that's Comey. Not James Comey, but his daughter, Maureen. Maureen Comey is one of the 3 lead prosecutors in this Maxwell case. Maureen was also a lead prosecutor in the Jeffrey Epstein case before he allegedly killed himself over 2 years ago. She also worked on another Epstein-related case, that of Nicholas Tartaglione. Tartaglione, a former cop in quadruple murder, was assigned a cell with Epstein and claims that he tried to help Epstein after he was found unconscious with marks on his neck, allegedly attempting suicide. But Epstein's attorney said he didn't attempt suicide, that it was Tartaglione who roughed him up. Later, Epstein was placed on suicide watch, and we all know how well that went. Now, if Tartaglione sounds familiar to you, it's probably because Ryan pointed out last week that Tartaglione's defense attorney is the same one now representing Ghislaine Maxwell. So Tartaglione, who was accused by Epstein of roughing him up, has the same defense attorney as Maxwell, who's being prosecuted by the same prosecutor who went after both Epstein and Tartaglione. that doesn't confuse you enough already. One thing that I really want to bring up on this is that
I'll stop it there. That last point is interesting. I don't think it's necessarily needed to understand for this conversation. So if you didn't quite get the entanglements that she explained, it's not, necessarily understand that part for this conversation. But I think she does break down, the case, surfacely for those who haven't been following. Do you feel like, Andrew, like you have a little bit better understanding of what's going on? So now take that and, basically the Garland Nixon take on how, the connection of her father. Now you can see, you can put that into perspective. And then as a side note, I do want to shout out Kim Iverson because she is saving the Hill. She is absolutely saving the Hill. Like when her videos are on, they get views, and when she's not on the videos, they don't get views. Like she has already like 5 videos over 1 million each. Like, and the other hosts don't have anything close to that. Like,
the other 2 are wet cardboard.
Yeah, I get the sense they're just begrudgingly keeping her. Like they don't want her there, but it's
you can tell the other hosts. You can tell the other hosts may not like that. Yeah. I like it though. I like that it seems like they're uncomfortable that they have to kind of allow her in the space because she's the reason why everybody's even watching them still. So that was just a side conversation. But back to the conversation, I'll bring in Bubbles. You've heard everything. You are, I guess, can be considered one of our resident, law enforcement background, military background person. What is your opinion or your take on what Garland Nixon said about this case?
I mean, it's incredibly interesting and gross, all these entanglements. I have heard that numerous times, more about him than about her, about being involved with Mossad and different Israeli intelligence agencies, which I think it's important for people to remember that, Mossad is everywhere. They are on a level almost comparable to the U.S. agencies. They have spied on, infiltrated, and murdered people all over the world.
Can you explain to our audience who Mossad, because those of us who aren't into it as much may not know. Can you break that down for them?
Yeah, Mossad is the Israeli Foreign Intelligence Service. So it's kind of the same thing as the CIA or the MI6. And they have a lot of practical experience operating all over the world. They have infiltrated and murdered members of the Palestinian Liberation Movement. They've tracked down and murdered former Nazis, which that's pretty good actually. But they have, compromised politicians across the Middle East and in the U.S. and
so they pretty much do the same thing the CIA does. They just do it for Israel.
Yeah, absolutely, and they very much work together at times.
That's amazing how the richest people's armies of each country, how they all just kind of work together, doing the same sort of tactics. But I digress. Go ahead, Bubbles. Finish. Go ahead.
That's absolutely my biggest takeaway from this case is there's incredible class solidarity among the ruling elite. There's all these gross articles that are popping up from high society writers about, don't you feel bad for her? I remember when I met her at college one year and she looked so glamorous. Like what are you talking about? But it just goes to show, these people of that class can do the most horrific things imaginable, and they will still get that class solidarity and that love from the other people in their peer group.
Yeah, and when you bring up that class solidarity, I'm gonna play this other video of I think is it Geraldo or Geraldo? No, Geraldo Rivera.
Geraldo Rivera.
Oh, what a mess.
Yeah, like I sent it to everybody, so prepare your stomachs for this. I'm gonna play it, or I should tell my audience or tell the audience to prepare your stomachs for this clip. But this speaks to what you're saying here about class solidarity. Now, professionally, if people don't know, Geraldo Rivera is a lawyer. He has a law degree, so he understands, the court system. So let's listen to what he's saying here.
I am outraged by the Maxwell case. You talked about Darrell Brooks, the creep who ran over his girlfriend, then killed 6 people in the parade, and he was out at $1,000 bail. Ghislaine Maxwell has been in jail for 17 months for no bail. They gave her no bail. She is sitting in prison prior to trial, accused, get this, of events that happened between 1994 and 1997.
She's a flight risk.
She offered to put up a $28.5 million bond.
She's going to escape to a country that has no extradition.
So you take her, you throw her in solitary confinement.
Allow me to educate you on
solitary
the federal
confinement.
bail law.
17 months.
You're defending a sex trafficker.
I am defending justice.
Sex trafficker.
The prosecutor in this case are guilty of political lawyering.
She deserves to sit in jail.
Because you don't even know she's guilty. How do you know?
Because she's a flight risk, because she was hiding during COVID.
She was not hiding.
In the Northeast.
She bought a house
yes,
in
she
New
was.
Hampshire.
$1 million house.
They
Let
holding
me educate you
because
really
they don't have a
quickly.
case.
Let me
They
speak.
have no case.
This is the segment I'm running.
They're trying to try Jeffrey Epstein.
Here's the federal bail law. You're allowed, in 1984, Congress passed federal bail law. You're allowed to deny bail on 2 grounds: flight risk and danger to the community.
Where is Ghislaine Maxwell going to hide? Where's she going to hide?
Everywhere.
She can hide overseas because
She's been
nobody
living
knows where the money is.
This is ridiculous.
Wait a
So I'll stop it there. I can't take any more of this.
Seriously.
Yeah, I can't. I wanted to leave it on there just so you can feel it in your gut enough. But that's it. Yeah.
Sound like somebody went on that flight and doesn't want anybody to talk.
Something.
Exactly. I'm waiting for that photo to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
let's go to Logan, since Logan hasn't had a chance to chime in. Logan, I don't know if you've been following the story, but the video kind of broke it down. If you weren't, but what is your take on the case in general? We're not saying her first name on purpose. So what's your take on the Maxwell case in general? And then, just based on the information, what do you think is going to happen based on the names involved? And then if you want to chime in on Geraldo Rivera being, class loyal here.
Okay. So yes, I have been following this case. Yes, it is just absolutely infuriating because this was one of the few times I can remember, this case is one of the few times I can remember where like the far right and the far left, everybody after, her buddy killed himself, was like, that's a lie. That's a damn lie. Like, we know when we're getting fucking played with, and they are just playing with us. The vulture class with this case, we happened to somehow catch them at basically one of the worst schemes they have going, right? And yes, what they're doing is they're taking advantage of, like, look, I grew up among wealthy people. Sometimes they're sick. And it's like, and I don't mean that just as an insult. I mean that because they have so much wealth and power and access. They can have anything they want to in the world. So like, somebody who grew up poor, you get a new TV, you're on cloud 9. But for them, they've had everything all their lives. So what they need like, the blood of a tiger drizzled over like the brains of like an endangered animal in order to even get like 1 little ounce of serotonin. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, of course they're doing this awful, horrendous stuff, right? And probably like, the CIA, Mossad, they know this and they're like, cool, let's get somebody who can get some compromise on these people, some mutually assured destruction, because we need to control them. Because look, even though there is vulture class solidarity, right? The one thing they don't want is anybody getting too much power, and they want to be able to control even the very worst people among them. So what better way to do than to catch them doing the kind of stuff that nobody can get behind, right? And is there class solidarity among the vulture class? Yes, there is. And there has to be, because there's so fucking few of them. And that's the thing that like we really need to, like, you know, in a lot of different political spheres, there are people that align themselves with either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party because of whatever reason, right? But they're not part of that class, okay? If you're making $100,000, they don't care about you. They don't care about you. You should be aligning yourself with homeless people, because these people, they're going to get together because there are so few of them, and they have all the money, and they're consolidating all the money and power, because that's what capitalism does, is it consolidates money and power, right? So we are watching right now how they're going to avoid discussing all of the stuff that we know to be true, right? The biggest names, like, it's not even a question whether or not Bill Clinton went on there more times than pretty much anybody else, or whether or not Trump was on there, right? This is one of those things where everybody should be like, look, if anything happens to this woman, first of all, second of all, if they don't bring out these big names that we've been talking about for months already, we've been talking about Prince Andrew and about, you know, we know all of this to be true, and we know they were doing stuff. Look, I've gotten a lot of massages from a lot of people, and let me tell you something. I don't want no massages from somebody underage. I don't care. I don't care. You can make it sound like however you want to sound, okay? But we know what these greasy behind people are doing, and it's not just men. There's women that are on those lists too. I was just looking at a list of powerful women who had been there doing what they do, right? So like, this is an example of how and when all the people should be united on something, right? And I'm not talking about just like, you know, we don't have to like sit next to each other and be friends.
Right.
But on this, the people should be in lockstep. Like, we need to squeeze every bit of information about her. And I mean on the powerful people, but also on the government and on the ways that the government used this situation to get information on people. And also they looked away from all the awful stuff they were doing because they were like, look, this is how we control these people. You know, we got to have some marionette strings out there. And this is one of those situations where, like, if it doesn't, like, I feel like this is so radicalizing, right? Like, for class issues, if we play our cards right and really let people know just how much the vulture class is fucking us and has been fucking us with this whole case.
Absolutely. Love that. And Amira, we're gonna go to now. Now I saved you for last because you had retweeted something about this case, and it's an article. So since you retweeted it, I'm pretty sure, having conversations with you, you probably read it or read part of it. So knowing that you know the information in that article, this is the reason why I wanted to have you last. So I'm going to share what it is so people know what that article is here. So let's put this up on screen. But this one here, you don't have to, I'm not asking you to talk about this article, but I would suggest everybody to go and read this article. And it says, these scrubbed reports reveal new secrets into the Prince Andrew Jeffrey E case, or connection. So check out the article. But Amira, you've heard everybody's take on the case, in particular this last take from Logan, and how he did it from a class analysis. But what's your take on all of this, on the Maxwell case, on, you know, the connection to, you know, to Sia, on just, you know, all of this entanglements as Bubbles used earlier? What is your take on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, great job, everyone. I think you guys all have really great insights on this. this case for me really represents an entire separate economy that has been established through the elites that's hidden from public view, which is why they're working so hard to censor. And that's why this piece from Whitney Webb, who I will admit I have not read the whole thing yet, but it's why they're doing these kinds of tactics of censorship and removing information from the internet, and why we're having to use specific keywords because we don't want to get removed from YouTube. I do feel that this is a representation of a very elite level economy that's very much behind the scenes, that is basically representatives of monarchies, nation states, oligarchs, presidents, and actors, from like Hollywood that we've seen, and that this is about millions and millions of dollars being moved around and using the Lolita Express and human trafficking as a way to do that. And so I think what Logan was talking about is very crucial to this discussion, because it is a separation of the classes. This is very much a class issue. And there's so many different people involved, from politicians and the way that laws have been created and the way that they're enforced, the police infrastructure that we have in this country. We have like recent cases on like the more local and state level that we can look at, where we see the proliferation within the police force of them not acting in the ways that they should, and not taking actors that are doing corrupt or illegal activities and doing the work that's needed to bring those people to justice. And the same thing is happening at this level, but it's that much more nefarious because these are people with so much control and so much power. In regards to Geraldo, I think someone who has been to law school and who has been an attorney, I think that him not recognizing that the bail system in this country is very double-sided. It's a class structure as well. We have Black and brown people of color and disenfranchised groups that they're not able to make bail because they don't have the kind of resources available to them. Yet he's wanting to advocate for someone like Maxwell, who, yes, is a flight risk, who, yes, has connections to Israel and to Mossad and to the CIA or CIA. And so these are very crucial elements to the case, and why someone like her, even though she could afford to make bail, shouldn't. And this is such a nefarious case. It has so many levels. I don't think we will ever really know all of the details and all of the people that have been affected. But I do think that there is an entire infrastructure that was around this economic dynamic of doctors and nurses and chefs, people that were installing the internet that we've seen in other documentaries, that were witnesses to someone like Bill Clinton being on the island. So for me, I really hope that if any of those people see this or any of the other documentaries that are going around, to come forward, because we need to get justice for the people that have been affected by this. And we need to find ways that we can infiltrate our justice system in the US so that we can bring these kinds of people to the forefront. But that's exactly why the elites are doing everything that they're doing, because they don't want this to be exposed.
Absolutely. And I'm putting this comment back on. So I'm taking everybody real time through my thought process. This is not at all a developed thought, but just piggybacking off of Garland Nixon, some of the things he interjected into my head. And now I'm thinking of this. Could it be Israel? How do you say the name? Mossad. Mossad. I'm sorry, Mossad. I'm thinking of the guy. So Mossad. Could they pull off something like this? Would they pull off something like this? Or let's answer it this way: if Mossad is like CIA, would CIA pull off something like this? And my answer was hell to the yes. They would do something like this. So that's why I pulled this back up here, because that's what I'm thinking when this person says this, is that would Mossad do this? as a way of blackmailing these elites. Because if you think of these people, think of the list of people. Just think of that. The list of these people. Think of what happened to E in prison. And you don't think like this is like a show to us. Maybe this trial is for us to think of one thing when something like Amira said is a completely different world that's happening parallel to our world. A completely different society, completely different economy, banking system for the real people that's running the world. You know what I'm saying? So I know I'm starting to sound conspiratorial, but this is my thought process and how I think.
There's
and I start to
documentation
go,
of
okay,
everything you
this
just said, so
doesn't make any sense. So I saw a lot of hands. I think I saw Felice's hand first, and then we'll go to Joy. So Felice, you're up.
I was going to say that, yeah, and from what I've read about Mossad, that they're kind of like the more intense version of Sia. Like they're like more
what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, like hand-to-hand combat, like will beat your ass until like you'll be gone. You'll never even know that they did it to you. It's insanity. They're like next
Police
level
force learns from them.
amazing. Like
Oh,
what
so like
horrible things they
we
do.
go to them to learn.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay, so actually funny, if you ever watch a TV show called NCIS, there's a character there who is from there, and it has a lot of interesting, some of it's not true, but a lot of it actually is. So if you want a good look at that, that's very interesting. But also, I was just going to say that the whole way that they all connect together is because Epstein was an arms dealer. That's what he was. And the first time he got on to the government's radar was during Contra. So that's how he got intertwined with the Maxwells and everything. So that's also where he always made all of his money, was arms deals. And that's also why Mossad would totally have all this stuff. And also, E was also keeping all these logs on purpose to blackmail people on purpose. So it goes both ways. It was all a system that none of them trusted each other, but they're all still loyal because everyone has stuff on each other. It's like a small town, except rich.
That is actually a great analogy. I'm going to throw this comment on there before I go to Joy. Just going along the lines of what I was thinking. Why is Comey's daughter, now Comey is the former director of what? Why is she there? She has no reason to, like she's being assigned cases that she should not be getting. All of these cases, especially with that conflict of interest that Kim Iverson pointed out. So let's go to Joy. Joy, what say you, Joy?
So a few things, while there is absolutely like some Sia stuff going on there, I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that all of the sexual abuse, everything like that is still 100% true. So it's not just like a cover up type thing and they're planting this evidence. Like all of that absolutely happened. Also, there are 30 to 40 victims that we know of, and only 4 are being invited into this case. That's abysmal. That is absolutely unacceptable. And
do we know why, Joy? Do you know why? Have you heard why? Have you read anything where they're explaining why?
A lot of them are too scared. A lot of them are they were asking if they could, leave their names out, things like that, not be on the stand in a picture, things like that. No, some feared for statute of limitations. There's a lot of, reasons, but I mean, to give you guys an idea, like when the woman was writing this article, the one who does the podcast on Chasing G, she literally talked to E every single day for over a month, sometimes on phone, sometimes in person. And every single thing he said off the record. And she said, look, you're giving me nothing. You're telling me every single thing you've said for hours, every day, for over a month. I cannot quote you on a single thing. He said, you're right. You can't. And that being said, that shows the power. Look, I'm going to tell you certain things, but I'm just going to like taunt you with them. It's nothing real big and juicy, but I'm just going to kind of give little pieces here and there, and then you're not going to be able to use it. And then he continuously said, if you say one thing in that article I don't like, my lawyers will get at you personally, not Vanity Fair. Her husband had a dead animal on his porch. Like all this crazy shit started happening. They are so powerful. They are so threatening, even psychologically, that people are terrified to even share what they know, because they know the ramifications are going to far surpass what the satisfaction of finally sharing their story. Also, I was looking for it. I can't find it. I forget what the actual term is, but G. Maxwell's attorneys are evoking some kind of, I don't want to say a plea, but it's that when you block out things that may have happened, and they are allowing it. So things that they're going to call G. Maxwell on, she can pull out this term and say, it may have, I don't remember. So it's like a regression claim. It's like,
they have a memory expert for that for the trial. There's going to be a memory expert, so they can be like, there's no way that she could possibly remember because of the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
remember that.
And one last thing, anyone who is trying to make excuses for her, that is the most repulsive thing in the universe, because this was no Stockholm syndrome bullshit, okay? This was her acting on these things. He was a lot like her father. He was very manipulative, abusive, not physically, but just she wanted his love so bad. And it was always one-sided. He didn't give a shit about her. He just used her. But she craved it, just like she always craved her father's love and never got it. But to act like she is a victim, or people are saying she's E by proxy, what? This is decades. This is decades. She would go hang out at private schools to befriend young girls, take them to coffee, and then next thing you know, give them modeling gigs as young as 12, 13, 14 years old. Oh, but she's a victim?
Yeah.
And that's what Geraldo's trying to do. He's trying to be like, this poor woman, she's stuck in prison. Like, it's very, woe is her. Hey, prison's a little too nice for what she deserves, honestly. So,
he was acting like the fact it was old and it happened a long time ago made it different. Like the trauma they had is somehow gone, and everything's fine now. They've all forgotten. This whole thing's bullshit.
G's lawyer came out last night and said she's disgusted with the appearance of the prison, that G has been subjected to a hard bed and an unclean cell. That is bougie right there. That is, I'm in a dirty prison. What the hell you expect, bitch?
All right. All right. Go. I think somebody was raising their hand. Was it you, Andrew? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had kind of one thing. Sorry,
Andrew, and then Amira. Andrew, then Amira.
I'll just say, like, that's and you all, like, we all know that's going to be like soon to be the new liberal narrative. Is they're going to make her out to be a victim. There's going to be like this Fox feminist angle to it, right? Like, that's what they always do. We already saw Bloomberg come out with some sort of op-ed about her being a victim, And meanwhile, there are pictures of Bloomberg with Maxwell. So, I wonder, what's going on there. And so I think that's just the number one thing we have to be on the lookout for is, once again, the liberals are going to take that kind of approach and try and distract us from like the actual issue involved.
Absolutely. And Amira.
So there were a couple of things I wanted to point out. That the fact that they're wanting to call her a victim is atrocious, and I find that absolutely disgusting, especially when the victims of E, that when he was finally convicted in either 06 or 08, they are still being labeled, those victims, as prostitutes, which is like, so they can be called prostitutes when they were pushed into this situation that they did not want to be pushed into, but then she can be proclaimed a victim. That's absolute bullshit. The other part of this case that is very suspect to me is the limitation in its scope. So it's only from 1994 to 1997, when we know that E and Maxwell were still continuing all of this activity up until, I think it was like 2017 or maybe 2016. So that to me is another representation of how the justice system is a two-tier system, like some people have actually mentioned in the comments. If this had been a regular, everyday, like individuals, they would have quickly been arrested and gone to jail and tried and all of that stuff. And so and these conflicts of interest that a judge is allowing this much infiltration of Comey and the defense attorney for Taglioni.
Taglioni,
Yeah, it just makes me want like Italian food. It's so insidious because it's showing us right now in front of our faces how this system works when you're in the elite versus how you're treated when you're not part of the elite. And it drives me crazy as when they want to try to, like Andrew was saying, like the neoliberal talking point is going to be, oh, woe is her, she's a victim. No, it's just we can't let these kinds of things continue, because that is trying to manufacture a narrative and consent. And like I say in almost every podcast I'm on, it's representation of the propaganda and persuasion of the media. And that's why the media kept this quiet for so long, because we know that there are people in the media that were also on these flight logs and also on that island. Like, we don't have the firm evidence because we can't get that information. And that's why they're keeping it from the public. There's zero transparency.
Why is everybody going to his island? What is at his island if it's not what we know is there? Like, what are they saying is there? Why is everybody going to this island like it's the place to go? Like it's Disneyland Resort? Like,
see, that's the thing. Is this like they don't need? Okay, first of all, laws are not for them. Okay, laws are a suggestion, and basically, it's, especially when you're talking about things like bail or you're talking about fines, whatever. If it's a fine, it's not a law. If you're rich, it's just not. If it basically like say like just with parking, right? That's how much it costs to park somewhere you're not supposed to be. You know what I mean? Who cares about a fine? That's how much it costs. Okay, well, I'm gonna park in front of this fire hydrant. What are you gonna? $500? Sure, no problem. That's how much it cost me to park there, right? And it's the same thing with worse stuff, because if you have money and power, if you're down with the squad, not that squad, but you know what I mean, down with the vulture class squad, right? Like, then they don't care what you do, and the problem is that we get hung up on like trying to pick out the facts and be like, nope, we've got you because you did this thing that is not consistent, and like that's not fair, right? Like, we got you. They know, they don't care. They don't care. Look, there's I don't even remember which book this is in, but it said something to the effect of, look, if you play by the rules too carefully, if you're too slavish about like being like logical and good, you're going to get beaten every time by people who are not that stupid. And I'm not advocating being an evil person. I'm just saying that like we have to not always equate tactics and effect. Like the ends justify the means is usually something that is said by really bad people, right? But like we need a little bit more of that on our side. The people need more of that on our side. And this was a tweet by someone named Captain Optomicus that I loved and that I've used for like, you know, a TikTok or something that I made. But he said, if you will not do something illegal, you will eventually do something immoral. And I really think about that because like who writes the laws, right? Who writes the laws? It's not us. The laws are in place and they get changed by whoever. It's not us. It's not the people. It's by somebody in power, right? So first of all, the laws are definitely going to benefit them to begin with. Second of all, they know everybody who has the power to enforce those laws for the police, you know? And that's another thing. If it weren't for the fact that a lot of people on the right they're like actively and aggressively racist. And like, to me, the Kyle Rittenhouse case and this case, there's some fucking similarities. And I really wish people, like, I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. I need you to see that the way that the Rittenhouse trial was rigged is similar to the way this trial is going to be rigged. Okay. And it's for the same reason too. I don't care that you believe that there's, you know, typical difference that creates different people. And this is a white man's, I don't give a shit. Just think about this for a second. Okay. They're going to use whatever they have to get over on you. And they did it against people that look like me and of course, even more people who are willing to help people who look like me for the Kyle R case. Right. And now they're doing the same thing for Maxwell. And it's against all of us. They don't care that she did the most reprehensible shit that there is to do. They don't care. They care about, and the worst part about the legal system is that it will put this stuff up in front of us because they have to give us the show that like there is law and order. Law and order will prevail. We're going to have a case and she's going to get seen by a jury of her peers. And it's just the same thing as might happen to you. It's all fair. And it's all, even though we're not going to talk about like 36 of the other victims. And even though we're not going to talk about, you know, old Slick Willie or about any of those other people named Bill, you know, like this should be infuriating to everyone. And I really hope that we can get people to put aside their differences and see how they are being manipulated in some of the same ways.
I think that's a great analysis. And what stands out to me, what you said is the ends justify the means. And when you say we need to start, the people need to start using that, is that when you said that, what I hear is we are the ones that should be using that phrase because our end is humanity. Our end is the planet.
Yes.
So we are the only ones who can justly say the ends or the means, the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
Or the means justify the
absolutely.
ends. We're the only ones who could say that. I mean, if you think of it in that way. So that's what stood out to me when you said that. I'm going to let anyone else who wants to chime in. I see Joy, so we'll go to Joy. And then, I'm sorry, Bubbles has I'm sorry, Joy. So we'll go to Bubbles, Joy, because he has been waiting. He's only talked once. So we'll go to Bubbles and then we'll go to Joy. So hang on to that thought, Joy. Bubbles, sorry, skipped you a couple of times, but go ahead, Bubbles.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on Logan's points. My father's an attorney, so when you talk about like, you know, if it's a fine, the law doesn't exist for the rich. It's kind of even worse than that because my dad as an attorney will say never pay that fine. You know, hire a lawyer. You can negotiate with them. You can get it reduced. You can keep it off your record. If you pay it, then you're in the legal system. You don't play by their rules. You keep it off your record. You pay a reduced fee. And talking about, you know, why we can't expect justice from this system, you know, like you said, they all know each other. You know, Comey, very popular guy in Washington, D.C. His wife is in politics. I forget exactly. I think she's an elected official of some kind. I'm sure his daughter is well known by all these DC people. I'm sure she's met Alan Dershowitz.
Yes.
You know, he's a very prominent law professor, hangs out with a lot of big time politicians in DC. This is all friends and family. It's all a club, and they take care of each other.
Yeah.
You know,
So
it's
maybe
a total
she's
sham.
there to make sure the real people don't really that they don't get involved into this trial. Maybe she's there to kind of do that. But let's go to Joy. Joy, what say you? What was your follow-up comment, Joy?
Oh, to Logan's point, you know, as far as talking about the prison regard, you know, Jeffrey was in prison in 2008. He never should have been let out, to be quite honest. But what happened after 2008? Well, G. Maxwell was standing in the front row at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Was E with her? No, it was after E was already in prison. So their parents obviously knew. She's BFF. She's dating him. But yes, please come to the wedding anyway. Right in the front row. You look amazing. That's great. Also, something that I noticed.
Wow.
The first thing I thought of when G. Maxwell finally was arrested a year and a half ago, my first thought was, what is going to happen tomorrow to overshadow this? And what happened the next day? Matt Getz, sex trafficking young girls the next day. And then they admit, well, we've been looking into him for over a year. Why did you announce it over a year later, the day after G. Maxwell got, but why? He was still trending every freaking day. He's a Republican. Of course you want him to overshadow that. So, no, I'm sorry. You're investigating him a year. You come out with this news the day after she goes in jail. Oh, real coincidence.
Absolutely. And did anyone else want to comment before we switch gears and kind of squeeze in this last topic or the second topic? If not, I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and switch to this next topic. We did add it late, but I do think it is a topic that we should cover. And that is the Chris Cuomo suspension from CNN. And then we have an update that he has made a statement. So let's first, get up to speed on exactly the story. So let me go ahead and share my screen and share this tweet here that has a short video that kind of breaks down the initial case against Andrew, and then it talks about Chris's involvement towards later in the video. So let's go ahead and let me go ahead and play this video right here, and we'll comment after.
This morning, new evidence revealed from the investigation that forced New York Governor Andrew Cuomo out of office, including documents and depositions from Cuomo, his team, and the women who accused him of sexual misconduct.
He definitely was making it known that he was single and ready to mingle.
Brittany Camiso is one of Cuomo's 11 accusers. She told investigators his hugs were unwelcome.
I remember his hand just sliding right up my blouse. And I remember looking down, and I remember seeing his hand, which is, I would say, it's a large hand, and over my bra.
Throughout his nearly 12-hour interview with investigators, Cuomo maintained his innocence.
It would be an act of insanity to touch a woman's breast and make myself vulnerable to a woman for such an accusation. Can you ever hear me saying, somebody says to me, you're going to get us into trouble? I don't care.
On Monday, the New York Attorney General released the information, Cuomo's attorney calling the move manipulated, claiming there was selective editing and redactions. The documents also reveal Cuomo's brother, CNN anchor Chris Cuomo, offered to use his media sources to find out if more women were coming forward. In March, a top aide to then-Governor Cuomo texted Chris Cuomo, quote, rumor going around from Politico, 1 to 2 more people coming out tomorrow. Can you check your sources? 4 minutes later, Cuomo responded, "On it." Chris Cuomo previously acknowledged it was a mistake to act as his brother's unofficial advisor. CNN Monday said the newly revealed documents, quote, deserve a thorough review. On a show last night, Cuomo did not address the evidence, instead beginning with this message.
And I hope Thanksgiving was a reminder for everybody of the good people and the good things in your life. Lord knows we could use the help, right?
The former governor is due in court in January on a misdemeanor charge of forcible touching.
So that is sort of in a nutshell what happened with Chris Cuomo. I mean, what happened with Andrew Cuomo initially, and then how Chris Cuomo played a part in it. So I want to actually, one second here. I want to do one last thing or play one last video actually before we get into discussion, because I don't want to interrupt the discussion with playing the second video. So let's play both now. This one is from Fox, and we're going to play this one. Hang on a second here. These things, I got to turn off the automatic feature on Twitter because it does this all the time. All right, so let's play this one. Fox News, so the conservative take on the same trial. I'm sorry, conservative take on Chris Cuomo.
Yeah, Brett, this is something that we knew months and months ago. Over the summer, it was obvious that Chris Cuomo was writing and approving statements for the governor's office that were then officially posted on the New York State's official government website. It wasn't a matter of just family dealings. It was a matter of Chris Cuomo being an advisor to his brother while also claiming to be a journalist. And now we're seeing this onion being peeled back even further, and that Chris Cuomo was going after his brother's accusers, which, according to the report that Letitia James put out, a lot of those accusations by those women were true. And so, Chris Cuomo was afforded a lot of privilege because his brother was the governor of New York. And now we're seeing, as a result of that, the opposite is now true. And it's boomeranging back on him. And there's now been some kind of accountability for behavior that's been going on for months and months. Yeah, Brett, this is something
Absolutely.
that we knew months and months
let me
ago.
Go ahead and take that one out. So that's Fox News, and you saw the initial video that I showed. So just want to kind of go around, and I know all of us, because I've seen a lot of your tweets, or some of your tweets, not a lot of your, but some of your tweets. I know a lot of you know more about the story than just those two videos. So I do want to go around and just kind of get your take on, Chris Cuomo, his participation in trying to cover for his brother, or at least help him through his media sources. So let's go to Amira first, and then we'll go to Amira, then Andrew, then Logan. So Amira, what is your take on this whole Chris Cuomo, or the Cuomo cover-up? I'll call it the Cuomo cover-up because it involves his brother too. What's your take?
It's just more of the same nefarious mainstream media working their magic to try to obfuscate responsibility when they have this kind of anchor who has such popularity, and I think it's like one of the largest viewer counts. Just trying to insulate him and protect him, and kind of be like, oh, we didn't know this was happening, when it's like, no, you probably did. And also just the coziness that they've had, like during the pandemic, when we were seeing the skyrocketing deaths in New York, and they were falsifying the numbers that were coming out. This is what they were doing, and colluding with each other. It's that whole selective process. It's, what's done for others isn't done for other people. And it's shame on them, like the network and Cuomo both, because they're trying to act like what they're doing isn't what's happening, and yet it is.
And I mean, do you think, I'll add this question, it'll be for everybody too. Do you think CNN will be dumb enough to bring him back?
Yeah.
Like, because I was gonna say yes.
Sorry.
That was a quick answer. Yeah. They're gonna bring him back. Yeah.
Because he gets.
I just can't believe that they would bring him back in this case, because his brother did bad things, like very bad things to women. So to me, being that they're trying to virtue signal to women, it just seems like a bad decision. But you are quickly just saying, yeah, no, they'll bring him back.
Yeah, they'll bring him back because as the neoliberal Democratic wing has shown us, they do not give a fuck about women and about the experiences that they have with these powerful men. It's all part of the system, and it's all about just trying to maintain control and cover up, and they've ruined the Me Too movement, as we've seen.
Yeah.
They'll bring him back with open arms. I hope not, but they probably will.
Well, I mean, they brought what is it? The other Jeffrey Toobin just came back,
Yeah.
or a couple of weeks ago. I think I said Andrew, right? I think I said Andrew then Logan, or Andrew then Bubbles, or Logan. Can't remember. But Andrew, what are your thoughts on the Cuomo cover up, on Chris's involvement in trying to cover up for his, or help his brother in this way? You saw the 2 videos. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever we talk about a certain instance like this, I think it's always important that we obviously talk about the details of it, but we make sure that we acknowledge that this isn't an anomaly, right? This is something that happens all the time. It might not be as exact of like brother covering up for brother, but like, let's talk about who these people are that are on these media outlets, right? As Matt Taibbi very well points out in his Hate Inc. book, a lot of them come from the same elite status, Ivy League, right? It used to be that these journalists came from working class backgrounds, and that there was at least, or a lot more did, and there was at least some buffer between the powerful people that they were covering and themselves. But because it's like we've been talking about, and I think one theme of this episode has been class solidarity amongst the 1%, right? They are all intermingled in the people that they are supposed to be skeptical and critical of, right? And I think this is an example of that, right? That's never going to be what the mainstream narrative is going to be. They're going to try and isolate this out and being like, Chris Cuomo made a stupid mistake while ignoring the structural things that enabled it to happen in the first place.
That's a great point. I had forgotten which orders, but let's go ahead and go to Bubbles and then Logan. So Bubbles, what is your take on the Cuomo cover up?
Yeah, I think like Andrew just said, this is classic 1% class solidarity. I mean, the Cuomos, again, they're another one of these dynasty families, right? The sons of Mario Cuomo, the extremely powerful politician who was also known to have been involved in various bad shit. So I would be shocked if Chris Cuomo was not directly involved, or at the very least, covering up a whole bunch of things. But of course, he'll be brought back. His brother is getting a slap on the wrist. I just had a visceral reaction to unwanted touching. What the hell is that? That's a misdemeanor? Why is he being charged with a misdemeanor? That's losing from day one. They're not even pursuing a real charge. So it'll be all swept under the rug by their buddies in the ruling class.
Yeah. They just give him a small charge because it's like, we have to give them something so the peasants, the workers, don't all jump in the streets and start burning stuff down. So we have to do something. So they give them this misdemeanor, because anybody else who could have done the same exact thing would have about 3 or 4 or 5 felonies on them per victim. Per victim. So let me make that clear. So with the amount of victims, I think somebody said 11. I can't remember what they said. So we would be talking about 55 charges for somebody black and brown, definitely, indigenous, definitely.
Seriously.
Like 55 charges. They would be going, as they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying it should also happen in this case too. So let's go to Logan, and then we'll round it out to Felice. Logan, then Felice. Logan, what is your take on the Cuomo cover-up?
Yeah, this is the same story as the last one, basically. It's
It
just a
is.
different,
It
it's
is.
like it's not like
It
I was
is.
thinking it was a departure. It's the same thing. It's just another different way. And like, but what it sparked in my head was I've been thinking about this a lot, and this is gonna sound like it's not connected, but just give me a second. So today, Susan Sarandon was trending again because every white neoliberal lady is pissed about Roe versus Wade, which they should be. It's horrendous. Like, let's not get this wrong, right? Like the fact that there's, not an equal distribution of how people will be able to access like healthcare, which abortion is healthcare, right? But it's not good. It's really, really bad. So I'm not trying to underplay it, but the fact is that that's like the main issue for them. And they don't care about the fact that like, poor people have had problems accessing abortion forever, right? And also, who are they not attacking? Who are these same, well-off, college-educated, liberal white women not attacking? They're not attacking their own families because no president has been elected, no Democrat has been elected with a white majority since 1964, right? That means the majority of white people are voting Republican. And that's been that way since 1964. So if these white women really wanted to attack someone, they would attack their own families, but they don't do that because that's part of the way that white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, all that shit is tied together. And they don't see that because they're focusing on just their position as women, disconnected without any intersectional analysis, right? They don't see how it's all connected. So they don't see how them continuing to support their own families. They went to have Thanksgiving with their racist ass Republican family members, and they would not rat out their family members, even though they're liberals and their family members are Republicans. It's all one team. Right? It's all one team. And getting people to rat out their own families, even when they know their families are wrong, even when they're vocally against everything their families have to offer, it goes out the window when the rubber meets the road. Right? So like, and once in a while, yes, like, I think Chris Cuomo won't come back because he's rich enough. He doesn't need to come back, like whatever. Maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. Like, to me, I don't care. I get, and it's just speculation one way or the other. But like the long and short of it is that in this culture, whether it is for reasons of white supremacy or it's for reasons of capitalism or whatever, right? These families protect each other. These powerful people protect each other, and it's because they know they're in the minority or they will be. And there's a certain kind of power that has to be protected by any means necessary. And they'll do whatever it takes to protect their families. So like whenever anybody says like, yeah, well, if y'all Bernie Sanders people weren't so mad, like we wouldn't have to worry about Roe v. Wade. I'm like, you know what? Go say that to the 70% of your family that's been voting Republican since 1964. Okay, like don't bring that over here, okay? Because y'all are all in on it together.
Right, I get you. So now you said give me a second, and I'm gonna connect it, and I finally, not finally, but it clicked. So let's bring in Felice, and then we'll go to Joy. But before I do that, just to reiterate, what Logan is saying is that I think is a great point. Is that like what's happening to Chris or Andrew or whoever? It really doesn't matter. He says basically this elite class, the ruling class, like they're gonna help each other. They're very class loyal. Doesn't matter how bad. I think that's what you're saying. Whatever bad thing happened, the same case that happened in the G Maxwell, the same thing. Whatever. They're part of our class. What are we gonna do? Spread this money out amongst the peasants? No, it's got to remain in the hand of the very few. So that's why they're so class loyal. So let's bring in Felice, then Joy, and then we'll round it out with Amira. So Felice.
I just was going to say the only reason in this instance I don't think that Cuomo is going to go back to CNN is because recently Warner Media has put CNN under Discovery, which they also own. And what they're saying anyway, the board members, one of them is John Malone. He's done a lot of interviews this past week about it. He wants them to go back to actual journalism, so they say. So we'll see about that. But I actually think that's the only reason that these messages and things have even come out, because we only see what they want us to see, which is why I'm so confused by a few things that are going on right now. But I think that's the reason that they let this happen, is because they were already going to fire him. They're already talking about getting rid of so many of their writers and the people that are on the show, because they don't want it to be entertainment anymore. They're wanting it to be actual news, possibly. We'll see. But if that's the thought process that, the investors are going with right now, it makes sense to get rid of him now. They don't have to pay him out. They can just be like, you're gone. And, it would be way more of a clean cut than having to get him out otherwise through mediation, because that's what they're going to have to do with everyone. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't have a lot more CNN people have things come up about them, but we'll see.
It almost feels like people know these things are going on and they just sit on the stories waiting to use them to say, okay, let's go ahead and activate that story over there and bring that, bring it off the bench. That's what it feels like to me. Because any story that comes out, this is for any news, any story that comes out came out for somebody wanted the story out. When they leak, no, somebody told somebody about that story. You know what I'm saying? Like it's somebody wants the story out, it gets out. So anyway, let's go to Joy. Joy, I mean, you've heard, everybody's sort of take on everything. What is your take on the Cuomo cover-up?
So the first thing I want to say is I know Chris has been suspended. But one thing I can't find is, was it with or without pay and benefits?
Right.
Because that matters to me and a lot of other people. My other question is, if he does get fired, is he going to get a severance? Because as we know with cops, things like that happens. Also a problem. So I think that's interesting that I cannot find that info anywhere.
I think the fact that you can't find it is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? The fact that because they would put that out, Joy. They would put that out. Oh, he's not getting paid either, as a way of saying, look, we're going the extra mile. So if it's not there, I don't think it exists. Right. Go ahead, Joy.
And also, I want to give a shout out to my sister, Lindsay Boylan. You are amazing. I love you. You are strong as hell. She is the first person who came forward about Cuomo, and she is a warrior. But as far as, Chris, I tweeted at Donna Brazil last night and asked her if she mentored Chris Cuomo. She has not gotten back to me, but I think there's something there. I really do. As far as that, though, like in 2016, those of us who read WikiLeaks, I mean, I admit I read thousands of the pages. I was a little obsessed. But, we learned that publications like New York Times was having Hillary's staff write articles for them and then using their own writers' names. Like, this is how powerful the media is. So the fact that Chris Cuomo would, give a heads up, that is not even close to, surprising when you have people who are literally, you have magazines, you have shows, you have the Daily Show agreeing that they won't make any jokes about Hillary and, going back and forth in emails. You have SNL saying, I mean, it was affected by everyone. That is power. So the fact that Chris Cuomo isn't going to do this, this has been talked about for months. I'm glad it finally came out, but it's like, I hope this isn't, people don't need to be woken up about this. This has been going on forever. And I think 2016 was the first real, holy shit, they are all working together. They don't care about truth. They want to manufacture consent. They're just going to push out as much garbage as they can, and people are just going to keep eating it up.
Well, let's hope less and less people eat up this propaganda, and that's what we're doing here on this show. That's what Joey does. That's what we all do. That's what you do on the Populist Voice. So that's what we're hoping to do. Now let's get Amira's comments on this same topic, and then we're at the 90-minute mark, so we'll wrap it up after that. So let's get Amira to have you chime in on this, the Cuomo cover up, and then how, like Logan pointed out, really this episode, it wasn't meant that way, but really the narratives of both topics are kind of the same about the elite class just doing whatever the hell they want to do. That's pretty much what's going on. So what is your comment on all of this, Amira?
Yeah, I mean, I did talk kind of right after we watched the video. So if anyone else wants to add anything,
I'm sorry, yes.
Please raise your hand and let me know. I don't want to take up airspace, but when Logan was talking, it actually brought up a little bit of a tangent in my head, but I think it's kind of prescient for the moment. When he was talking about like the role that white women have had, and that they need to be calling out their families when they're trying to, talk about abortion rights, but then not doing the real work. And I was thinking about Bill Burr's skit that he did. I think it was earlier this year on SNL, and how uncomfortable the audience became when he was laying out some very real truths about how white women are trying to benefit from both systems, basically the women's right movement for Me Too, and we need to amplify women's voices and be there for them, when they're the same women that have benefited from the white male structure and the systemic issues that have been caused by that. And how, like, he talked about like they want to like run their boots to get to the front of the line. So that was just kind of what was going on through my head and stuff, because Joy mentioned SNL. I mean, these are all very crucial elements to how people create their perspective and their worldview. That's why media is so important to talk about, because there's so much power and control there. And I think that what we all do online here in trying to amplify that space and that voice to talk to different people, have these difficult conversations where not everyone's going to agree, but finding a way to come to the middle. And like Logan said, this is a great moment of bringing people together, the Maxwell, the E case, and just the media propaganda machine, because it is very strong. And I think that's why they're trying to do so much censorship of social media and YouTube, and why we're now having to see new applications coming out like Rockfin and Rumble,
right?
Because they're seeing that they are losing that power, and so that's a good thing. And so it's just us constantly pushing that line and moving it more and more, and working together, because that's how we're going to take down this system.
Yeah, I think they may be thinking now, like, wow, we thought the internet would get us the way to internationally sell everywhere, but it's turning out not that good. To like, it's turning out. I wish they probably be like, we wish we could take the internet away, or the interwebs, as they call it, the interwebs away. But that's that's a great point. There's two things that the elite hate. They hate the Constitution, actually, because the little protections that it does give to us, they hate that. And it seems to me that they hate truth being disseminated, which kind of speaks to what a couple of you have mentioned, to censorship and censoring the left. Like, how is it in a free country? I'm going off on a tangent. How is it in a free country that you can even have misinformation? How? I mean, in a free speech country. Because how do you not call commercials misinformation. They lie in commercials every single day, every single second of every day of the year. They lie in commercials. That's misinformation, but that's okay. What does the CIA do?
Yeah.
That's all they do is misinform. What do our politicians do but misinform? Oh, you're going to get $2,000 checks when he knew we weren't getting $2,000 checks. So it's all about who is misinforming, because I said this to Nick, state lies, or in this case, state misinformation is okay. People's truth is not okay. So I know I went off on a tangent, but that's sort of my last thoughts on this episode. So let's go around the room to give everybody an opportunity to kind of, if you have any comments on any of the topics, or if you just want to kind of sum up your, how you're feeling, like what I just did here, or you just have something on your mind or heart you want to say, this is your opportunity. And also shout out your show. I think all of you have a show. Amira, I think you have a show. You appear a lot on other people's show enough to where it's almost like you have your own show. So shout out your show on the PVN network. Like I said earlier, this is the last time doing this, the New Left on the Revolutionary Blackout Network. It'll be exclusive on the Populist Network, and the time may change, so that's something you have to check out on the Populist Network. So let's go around. We'll start with let's start with Joy. Joy, if you have any final thoughts on the topics, go ahead. If you don't, just tell us about your show. Tell us about what you got going on.
So my final thought is Hillary's VP choice was a pro-lifer. So when the shit libs come screaming about Queen Susan, just tell them, hey, she picked Tim Kaine, and throw those articles at them. Also, Tim Kaine's own son voted for Bernard over his father. So let them know that too. True story. Tim's the one that said that on an interview, and it was amazing. You can check out my shitlib parody book, Yas Queen Chronicles, savageandpat.com. And my show is Savage Joy Marie Mann. It's on YouTube. However, I am on Rockfin and doing a lot of exclusives on Rockfin. So please subscribe there as well, because they actually don't censor.
Yay! Love Rockfin.
Tomorrow I will be having my comrade Elias Cepeda, who is a journalist, will be joining me for this week's news. And Friday, I am starting a new true crime show on my Rockfin with the lovely Felice and Amira.
That sounds awesome. And you said it's true crime show?
Oh, yeah.
Let me take that logo off of there. Let me take that logo off. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we went to Joy. Did I say somebody already, or did I mention? I don't think I mentioned in order. So let's go then to Bubbles, then Felice. So Bubbles, any final comments on any of the topics if you want? If not, talk about your show. Let us know what day and time and anything else you got going on.
My final thoughts are just to ask everybody to think about how the ruling class practices class solidarity, and to let that inform how you live your own life. Because, I mean, there's so much generosity extended between the ruling class. Like, oh, he didn't mean to do it. He's a good kid. He's from a good family. There is so much material support, lending money, sweetheart deals on properties, all of these different things. The ruling class takes care of each other as a class, and that's something we have to learn to do in order to fight back. Please check out my show, Locked and Leftist. We talk about weapons training and the history of the armed left movements. That is every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is myself, is a Marine Corps veteran and history buff and lifelong martial artist, and Lixtiel, or El Diablo. She is an Afghan American, a gun owner from San Francisco.
Awesome. Love the show too. And now let's what did I say? Let's go to Felice. I'm sorry. Let's go to Felice then Amira. Felice, any final thoughts on any of the topics if you would like to comment? And if not, tell us about your new show or your show and anything else you got coming on.
I wanted to say on the topic that it's funny that you brought up how laws and things with ethics work, because I'm actually in legal ethics right now in college, and basically the first chapter is how law and ethics are not the same thing, and that you have to get that out of your head, and that you have to leave your ethical mind behind and you have to follow the law, which is usually not ethical, and that's why you can find loopholes for almost anything. Like if you have a good lawyer, you could get away with anything, murder, steal, everything. That's why rich people get it all the time. But literally the first chapter is about how law is not ethics and ethics is not law. And you don't need to even think about ethics unless it has to do with what's good for your client and your clients in the past and future. That's it. Confidentiality and winning. That's why I am not taking any more law classes and I'm done because
these are the people running our country, by the way.
Yes, and they know this
attorneys
stuff.
is the biggest
that frustrates me,
job.
And that's actually a good segue into my hopefully soon new show. And actually, I've been talking to Amir about it because I wanted her to possibly be my co-host, and we're going to talk about that more. But we're going to be doing on Tuesdays something called Page Not Found, and it's going to be history, like usually stuff you can't find everywhere. I want to do historical events that people don't really know about, and I actually want to go through the American government, how it actually works, how politics works, and everything like that with that show. And then I'm also going to be on Joy's channel on Rofkin doing Chasing Shadows with actually it's not just Joy and Amira, it's also Logan and Andrew is possibly going to be on when he has time.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's going to be really fun. I'm very excited about that, and that'll be able to show some cases that really haven't been brought to light, and maybe actually the truth about a lot of cases will come out, not just what the media kind of said about it. So I'm really excited about both of those, and I hope everyone checks both of them out.
Absolutely.
Eventually.
Awesome. And let's go to, I think I said Amira. And then after Amira, we'll round it out with Andrew Logan. So Amira, if you have any final thoughts on any of the topics, and if not, what do you have coming up? And before you would say I don't have a show, but it sounds like you will be having a show. So when is your show and what day and time? So Amira.
Yeah, my final thoughts are to always critically think and don't believe everything that the media tells you. There's always a deeper story there. Like Felice and Joy said, I'm going to be joining them on this Friday for a true crime show, and we're going to be talking more about this Maxwell case. I am a writer for a blog called Endemic Times, and I have a new piece coming out either tomorrow or Friday. I need to finish up a few things. It's called A Broken System, Pretending It's Not Broken, and it's specifically looking at the Arbery, the Rittenhouse case, and how that coincides with our policing system and that entire infrastructure, alongside with looking at the legal system and how that is worked hand in hand with the policing system. So I'm very excited about that piece. I'm very proud of it, and that should be out at the latest this Friday. And you can find that stuff on Substack or at endemictimes.com. And I am also starting my own YouTube channel called Endemic Times. I'm hoping to have that first video out in the next 2 weeks.
Awesome. Sounds great. So when I first spoke with Amira, she wasn't even sure to do any of these things, and now she's starting her own channel. So that's what I want to say. Everybody can do this. Everybody, and I want everybody to do this because they can't censor, 50 million people. Or maybe they can. Maybe they can, but it'll be very hard. So everybody build these networks, build these interconnected networks, go on everybody's show, go on that show and that show. You interconnect audiences so that if they take one of us down, we just reinsert, start a new account, and we just start filling you back up with your followers. So that's my vision of this whole new left, because the name of this show is actually a broader idea of the new left, of a different type of coalition, not just talking about believing in the same policies, but talking to each other, doing things with each other, planning, organizing with each other. So all of that. So great to hear that. So let's go to Andrew, then we'll go to Logan. So Andrew, same thing. What are your final thoughts? And when is your show and what do you have coming up?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that it took this long for people to start doing that, figure it out. Forever, it was just everyone in their own little silo just talking. But yeah, no, great that it's happening. Big final thoughts is Nancy Pelosi endorsed 2 anti-choice Democrats previously in 2020. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely leftists that are undermining abortion rights. And then second thing wanted to say is, I definitely want to learn a little bit more about how places like Peru and Honduras are able to have such strong class solidarity, because they're really just, they're not messing around there when it comes to getting worker-friendly people in there to run the country. And then in terms of things that I'm going to be on. So every Monday, Postmortem Breakdown, 9:30 p.m. with 2 of the other people I'm with right on this panel, Logan and Savage Joy. And then catch me on the New Left. And then tomorrow on the Populist Voice Network at 9 p.m., going to be talking with Z on his Revolutionary Reader show about the book Color of Law. So, which I think is a great book that really breaks down policies. We've been talking about laws for thee, how laws apply to different people, right? And so I really look forward to talking about that because that book really just opened my eyes to a lot of specific policy that has led to residential apartheid, essentially. So, yes, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Andrew. And last but certainly not least, we have Logan. If you could leave us with some wisdom, some final thoughts, and then what do you have coming up? Your shows, everything, Logan.
Yeah. So final thoughts would be just to reiterate what I said earlier, which is that our path is not always going to be through the legal. And we have to worry more about what we know to be right than about what's legal, because what's legal doesn't necessarily work for us, as has been said by a lot of the other panelists and just, has been proven by the things we've been discussing. I won't repeat the shows that everyone else has mentioned, but I am going back to my own podcast, Focused on Infinity with Logan Grendel. And my first one is going to be basically a long form discussion about tech and the tech things we need to do that are not connected to existing infrastructure, and ways that we can basically maintain like a lot of the stuff that we have, but still get the world we want. And it's good. I have no idea about most of this. Like, I'm not primarily a tech person, but I'm going to have someone named Trash Robot on, and we're just going to talk for like 2 hours and just get it all out there. And yeah, otherwise you can find me on Patreon. Patreon is also Focused on Infinity, or on Instagram.
Awesome. I think we got everyone. I'm just happy to hear Papia's voice is doing well. I'm happy to hear some of you are going back and doing your own channels. Joy has been doing her own channel. That is something I do recommend if you have the time. Look at the Populous Voice as the all-star team, and then you have your own channel. And you come
Please
to get
subscribe. Please.
right. Subscribe to the Populous Voice. Yes. So great to have you on. A little sad that this is the last episode we'll have, but never know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe something will happen and we'll start doing something like this or doing something joint. So we never know. But keep pushing forward with all of your shows. Start your channels. This is the only way that we're going to be able to do this. This is the only way.
Shout out to you for getting us all involved in this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing us together.
Absolutely. And yeah, I guess that's it. So go to the Populous Voice, subscribe. As far as the Revolutionary Blackout Network, tomorrow, Thursday, we have the roundtable. Friday, we have the Sabrina show. I don't think it's the Sabby Sab show. That's on her own channel. So Sabrina would be on Friday. I think Nick will be doing something on Friday before her. Saturday, who knows? Sunday will be JB, and then Monday we're back at the Nick and CJ show on Monday. So great to have all of you on. Good luck with everything, and we're signing off. Oh, thank you for everybody in the comments. Great comments. We had a great discussion. So thanks everybody. We're signing off now.